Hello, everybody. So, today we're going to get into talking about Japanese education, generally considered one of the top educational systems in the world, something that Japan has been known for, something a lot of other places in the world have tried to emulate. So, let's get right into it. So, again, kind of similar to the economics that I talked about, after World War II, the Japanese don't have an army, and as you can see, much destruction and things they have to rebuild within their own nation. So, what they're going to do is put a mass investment into education so that they can basically provide a basis for a strong generation to come and then generations after that. And in Japan, they put a lot of money into both public and private schools. So, those options are there for people. Now, Japanese education does start very young, actually. In most places, you start at age 3 with a 3-year kindergarten. And in some places, I've actually seen students in publicly funded education as early as 1, which is very interesting because a lot of people, places here until kindergarten, parents have to pay for daycare and stuff like that. This is state run, so the as early as age 3, you're in there. And as you can see, you have some little kindergartners there, and they all wear school uniforms. That's a big thing in Japan, but they have their hats to determine their classes. So, kind of adorable. And then they go through elementary school from the ages of 6 through 12. So, really, the same thing as the United States. Fourth, well, a little bit different because some middle schools are 6, 7, 8. But basically, first through 6th grade is elementary school. Okay. Now, what we have here is very interesting, and I'm just going to kind of show, because I'm going to refer to these things. The Japanese education system is really, really interesting. As you see here on the bottom, you have the early childhood education from the ages of 3 to 6. Then you have the primary education, which I explained. Then you go to middle school, basically to what would be the equivalent of your 7th, 8th, and ninth grade year. Then you take high school entrance exams. And those exams basically help forge a path that many students will go into. Most students will end up here in the senior secondary school, basically high school. However, some students over here can end up in what are referred to as college of technology schools or vocational schools to work on a variety of vocations, whether it's a mechanic, whether it's a computer tech or something like that. There are lots and lots of options. If there's something in the United States that I do think is lacking, I do think that our lacking for vocational education is relatively limited. Would be nicer if we had more opportunities for students that are really much more dedicated and wanting to go into those. And in this case, basically, as early as what would be your freshman or sophomore year, you can get into that path and get yourself in a position to thus get into something that you want to get into. Now, then you have, after high school, you have the university entrance exams, and I'll talk about testing more in a moment, but it is very, very intense. And if you don't score well on those exams, you actually can't go to college. In the United States of America, you can pretty much go wherever you want to. In Japan, it is not a given. You actually have to, we take the SATs, and cause they're kind of important. But in this particular case, if you don't score certain things on exams, you're out. Now, from there, you can go over here, your left, so you university, you have an associate's degree. Go back here. Associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctoral degree, same type of thing. Or special, if you want to go to medical, veterinary, dental, pharmaceutical, stuff like that. So some things, this is the big difference here, that entrance exams, and I'll get more into that later. Okay. In order to get the students ready for this, what do? Well, there definitely is a lot of lecture, but in general, they also do focus on small group work because cooperation is the key thing here. It is having students work together in a variety of different ways, both in schoolwork, both in extracurricular work. The Japanese are really, really big on this kind of cultural unity, which is really, really important, which I've actually talked about in other videos, and you need to work together. So very often, you don't really have levels per se in a lot of these classes, like honors or ACC and where I teach. Rather, everybody's kind of in the same area, and more advanced students are actually expected to help students that might be struggling or a little behind catch up. So there is this real big focus on cooperation. As well as extensive special needs programs for a variety of different students who have a variety of different special needs. Those are taken care of in Japan as well. Now, in high school, there are three generalized types of schools. There are technology schools, senior high vocational schools, and then kind of like your regular high school. All of those schools have specific aims. Of course, your regular high school, that's for you to go to college. A technological school would be to go into something like computers. And then, of course, the vocational school go into a variety of different vocations, mechanics, repair people, just so many different vocations there. The general aims of those schools is to try to get students to achieve as much as possible. And the other big thing is the kind of the myth in Japanese schools is that they don't do anything but school. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a bit of that which I'll get to, but there are lots of extracurriculars. For instance, if you look on the right there, baseball is one of the biggest things. Very common to have high school baseball teams, as well as just the regular clubs that you would have, and band and stuff like that. All of those things are actually there. But the testing is what is crazy. It is the huge focus. Okay, after high school, you take tests to determine where you can even go to college. Okay, and there are actually 30 separate tests in 6 or 7 subjects. It depends on where you're trying to go to school at. Again, your core subjects there: geography, history, civics, Japanese literature, foreign language, science, and mathematics. And actually, I say foreign language. Most elementary schools start teaching children English from as early as that kindergarten time period. It's crazy intense, guys, because if you don't do well, like, you don't get to go to school. On the right there, you see that one kid getting thrown up in the air because he did well on his entrance exams. Based on you get kind of a code, and exam scores are actually posted outside in many places. I know it sounds crazy, and so you see this up here. So this will be on a list of kids who either passed or didn't pass the exam or something along that line. Now you can, even if you've graduated high school and you didn't pass the exam the first time, you can study, you can go to school, and you can pass the exam the second time. But the pressure is huge, which I'll be getting into. The length of the year is pretty long. It's a 210 days minimum. Here in New Jersey, we're at 180, so they must go to school an extra month. They actually start school in April in Japan and go to March. They have different breaks throughout the year, but basically they focus on year-round schooling. They used to go to Saturdays, but Japan changed that, so it used to be not only was it much longer, but it also used to be 6 days a week. Almost everybody is taught English, and then character education, again, is really, really big. And what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of it is discipline and working together as a team. And probably the best example we can have of that is students clean their schools. Schools do not have janitors, and that includes bathrooms and whatever. I'm sure if I tried to make you clean a bathroom, I get sued. This is really, really crucial here, this discipline of working together and having pride in your school, having pride in what you're doing. And as a result, you often see when students cleaning schools and stuff like that, like, they achieve more because they don't want the school to get messed up because they put that extra time into it. And I actually think that's a brilliant type of thing. And again, you're working together. Like, no one has to clean a hallway by themselves. You see all these girls on the right here cleaning the hallways. You see the kids cleaning the floors. You'll also see all of them in basically uniforms. That's a big thing in Japan. Everybody wears a uniform, no matter what level. Again, that talks to that unity and, in to a certain way, conformity as well. Now, there are some concerns. And the concerns here is it is very intense. Children can have breakdowns. They can have issues of depression and fear. Those tests, I mean, the fact that matters, you can take one test and then that test can say you can't go to college. I don't know if I have any students that have faced that type of pressure. I mean, that's crazy. There's also a big impact on your family. Like, if you don't do well, people find that out, and there's social implications about your status and things like that if you're not doing well in school. And then the other thing is the juku schools or the cram schools. So kids go to school a regular amount like you did or I did, your regular school day, and then they might go home or to an extracurricular. But then later on in the evening, for another often 2 to 3 hours per day, they go to a supplementary school, which is called a juku school or a cram school. As you can see, all the kids there literally like crammed in, right? This little space where I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids there. And we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, there's probably 70 kids or so in this classroom, all jammed in, working on whether it's English or math. So it's like you basically do a double session of school every single day. And this starts as early as first grade. The first graders don't go as long, but it's all about high achieving. And what a lot of people then look like, because there's this focus on the test, there's a lot of knocks on Japan that the kids aren't as creative, that Japan has been a little bit slowed down in recent years on innovation because everybody just is really good at test taking. They're not good at creativity. And there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. The stress on the students. There are kids that run away. There are kids that, unfortunately develop some mental illness because of the stress and depression. And so there are definitely some drawbacks to this. But overall, when you look as an educational system, the Japanese have been very successful. If you remember the economics video that we looked at, you can see the success in the Japanese system. And again, where they came from, from being devastated in World War II, of course, a lot of that being the fact that they invaded people in World War II and had to rebuild and go in a different direction, So no longer are they looking to conquer the world and stuff like that because they physically can't. So what is the society going to do? How is it going to change? And the educational system is really the way that you can see how that change developed. Okay, guys, hope you learned a little something new here, and we will talk soon.